Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Probably already know me. I'm Alberto, and or Dio Brand on Twitter. And I don't want to talk that much about my stuff today. Actually, there's only one slide about my special recipe. I would like to talk about something which has been bugging me for a long time. Something that is. I mean, I'm not the only one worried about this problem. I was listening to Adam Thorne before, and a few other talks were kind of touching the same problem. Let's see if I can bring something similar or interesting on the table. So I would like to start from here, from this book that should be kind of far away from my ground. How many people here have been reading this book? Well, kind of still 15%, 10-15%, kind of a small minority. No, I think that book is interesting because this book is about a large survey in a quite high number of companies checking about what was actually working in enterprise software development and what's not. So the problem we have in consulting, in software development or agile software development is just like every single one of us has only war stories or success stories coming from the places where they have been. And there's a lot of anecdotal stuff and a lot of little influences like I only see the places where I was invited to see. And what data can I bring? What was the single reason why things were going well or bad? Well, you don't know. So in this case, from this book from Nicole Forsgren, that is actually a PhD in statistics, with the help of Jess Samble and Jin Kim from the DevOps community, was a large survey that was bringing some answers. So we have science, not so much anecdotal stories, which are necessary, by the way, in a place of complexity. But let's look at the science. And the first result of this book is basically this one. The idea of DevOps is actually working. It's a pretty good predictor of business performance in organization. And so the findings from our research shows clearly that the value of adopting DevOps practices is even larger than we thought, and the gap between high and low performers continues to grow. Actually, the second part is actually really important. We will see that. So what is DevOps in their own definition? Is basically a combination of these traits. Frequent code deployment. That's basically the values that we're measuring. Fast lead time from commit to deploy. Fast recovery from downtime. Yes, we still do make mistakes, but we recover quickly, and lower change failure rate. And talking about the number, this is good and disturbing at the same time. So frequent code deployments up to 46 times more frequently. It's not like I am a little faster than you. I am just running in circles around you while you're thinking about what to do. Fast lead time from commit to deploy, up to 400 times faster lead time. We're not even in the same league. Yeah, that is the main idea, and it actually matches with a lot of the observation that I had in a few places. Like, in some places they have never seen something which is actually working. Anyway, the business might be reading this data and react in some way. So the typical business strategy, DevOps is working. Well, let's hire some DevOps, and end of the story. So I would say that's probably the end of my introduction. But here, this is not a DevOps conference, so let's talk about microservices instead. Let's get a little bit more close to the architecture. And the data says something, kind of borderline. Data is saying like they are more frequently adopted between high performers, but there is no significant differences according to which type of architecture. So basically, the summary is just like microservices by themselves are not enough. And that's actually not a surprise. And also for a few reasons. This is something that was happening after I was having a dinner with a colleague of yours, and he was coming back from a microservices conference. And there was this survey. How many of you have been doing event-driven in microservices? I mean, it was a microservices conference, so everybody was doing microservices. How many people doing event-driven? And it was him. Anybody out there? No. The only person. And what the hell were you talking about? And the second one is coming from a friend of mine, one of the best software craftsmen in Italy, and he told me candidly, like, my market nowadays is a lot of company asking me to coordinate microservices deployment, which was, what's wrong with you guys? Just like an independent unit of deployment, and now let's coordinate it. Okay, there's something really, really weird going on. And I think the thing that we are looking at is more or less this type of scenario. Like, yeah, you might have the senior architect in some organization saying like, well, you know, I've seen it all over again. It's just like microservices, just like SOA. We screwed up SOA in the past. We will screw up microservices exactly in the same way. And just like there's something which is not in the technology, there's something in the adoption. So this thing is, in one way, is pretty scary. So just like feel like we are little hamsters running in circles, reinventing technology, and the problem is still there. Still, there was some good news in the book. And one of the good news for this community is just like, well, there was a good predictor of success, which is loosely coupling. And in a domain-driven design conference, loosely coupling means kind of bounded context. And this type of decoupling, this type of loosely coupled organization turns out to be a really, really good predictor of success. And this also leads to a question, and the question might be kind of, wait a minute, microservices and loosely coupled were not intended to be the same thing. I mean, that's one of the, wow, with microservices, you're going to be loosely coupled, and we are decoupling by putting things somewhere in the cloud. And when they're not the same thing, and the answer, I think, if you've been following some of the talks, is clearly not, because we can still do some crap, which is, I'll turn my monolith entities into microservices, and then what you have is just coupling promoted to a colossal level. And there are tutorials out there telling you this is exactly what you do. You take your customer table and has an entity on top of it, and then you just make it like a microservices, which is now available to everybody. And then what you have is just dependency exactly on the same database table, only passing on some other levels. But it's not only that part of the story, it's actually even worse, because if you are inside the monolith, you can still have a lot of IDE tricks in order to help you refactoring. The moment you go microservices and distributed stuff, you have dependencies at the level of deployment also, and refactoring becomes an order of magnitude more expensive. And then from the financial perspective, you basically used all your budget to turn into a microservices architecture, and turns out to be irrelevant or even worse, and now we have no money left to go back or to say like, well, you know, the microservices stuff, looks like we screwed it up a little. We should just like go back and do something different. No, it doesn't happen. So the actual, I don't know how to put it. I think this is kind of getting close to the end of humanity, and the only way out is to assume that Greta Thunberg is right and global warming is going to kill us all before we make a good code review, because this problem doesn't have a clean solution. Anyway, let's get into a more optimistic mood. And another factor that was interesting is that it was not only code a good predictor of success, but it was also the originating culture that has a significant correlation with potential success. And talking about culture, the book was following this Western classification, and yes, that's not really my job. And the classification was around the pathological, power-oriented, bureaucratic, which is much more rules-oriented, and generative. Generative is a little bit more like, try, make experiment, you're gonna be rewarded on top of the result. It's just like, more or less the place where I would like to be. If you've been reading Reinventing Organization by Frédéric Laloux, there's something similar with the progression from red to teal organization. Yeah, there's something in this area. Interesting. I'm not exactly talking about this stuff because, yes, not really my job. But the moment we start putting culture on the table, things are starting to get weird. And maybe exactly for this statement, not really my job. I don't know exactly what is my job. I'm something between a software consultant, a software architect, a shaman, and a DJ. But there's one thing that I do. I think I do well, and it's I'm kind of a bullshit sommelier. I think I can smell. Well, this is a very good barrique bullshit. Anyway. The thing that I feel like when people start talking about culture is just like, again, not really my job. Just like, well, that's something that somebody else should do. And the culture is a given. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, you know, in this company, never ever a single project has been released on time. We have a strong culture of debugging instead of testing. I mean, culture of debugging. Think about it. Well, we have this mentality, and for us as software people, well, culture is orthogonal and independent from other concerns. So basically, once again, not my job. Yes, but. So again, I'm not a sociologist, not at all. I'm still a computer engineer that has been reading a couple of other books, but I cannot give you a precise definition of culture, and I'm not even trying, because, yeah, the little engineer which is still inside me is looking for an actionable kind of definition, and here is mine. And when I get into teams and organization, or even in other cities, I would say like culture, for me, is a cumulative effect of a winning behavior within a given context. It's not precise, it's not even scientifically proven, but it's kind of actionable for me, because I can think about it and I can, well, maybe there's something that I can improve. Can I do something with this? Oh, yes, this is in the small scale. It's something that I do when I'm facilitating. In the larger scale, well, we can do something in our workplaces and organization and so on. In order to get there, I have a little interlude, a little story about a bus ticket. This is a bus. More or less the same model of bus we had in Bologna, where I studied. And a friend of mine wanted to make, well, once again, a scientific statistical survey. He wanted to check whether if it was more convenient to pay the ticket or not. I mean, everybody, the university time, you're looking for knowledge and you're looking for thrill, so you try to do something like that. And so for 1 year, he decided not to pay the ticket and pay all the bills. Like, he was still a decent human being, but wanted to see what happens. So statistically, he actually demonstrated that it was not worth the price at that time. I don't know how the fines are right now. But it was interesting, because after 1 year trying to escape the controllers, you start recognizing them. I mean, the guy with the long mustache, and it was a student city, so the hunt for students not paying the ticket was something close to managing narcos in Mexico. They had a force of controllers getting out of all the 3 doors. So that was fun times. I was on the side of always paying the ticket, because you do blind groups division to do stuff. Anyway, there was a lot of fun going on there, but the environment was kind of weird. Like, if you look at this bus and if you look at the scenario around it, you cannot buy the ticket on the bus. You can only buy the ticket in shops and vending machines, which might be close or not to the bus stop. And in order to speed up the operation of onboarding, you can enter the bus from the front, from the middle, and from the back. And so it's very easy to jump on without a ticket. And, or maybe you have a subscription, but anyway, you don't have to show anything to anybody. And this means that you have only to show the ticket if the controller is showing up. So cheating was very low-risk activity in this. Okay, Then I started traveling, and I went to some other country. So this is a typical scenario that I found in some other country. You just get on the bus from the front door, and then, well, you have eye contact with the bus driver. Or even more interesting, this is something that happened in Amsterdam. You have the tram, you have the driver in the front, and you have a person dedicated to the ticket exactly at the center. And you should only get up from the center, so you have to look at the ticket person and have a conversation, show the ticket or buy one. And once we were actually at another conference in Amsterdam. We were jumping on the bus from the front because it was raining and we were late. And we jumped in, and the conductor took the microphone and said something like, yeah, gentlemen, the ticket, please. And so suddenly we have 30 people looking at us, and we were going to make the ticket anyway, but, well, you know, peer pressure. He was good. He was calling us gentlemen, so we felt obliged to behave like that. And we went there. But this got me thinking a lot, because if you think about it, the payment on the bus kind of enforces a single entry point. If you are violating this behavior, everybody's looking at you like, what are these guys doing differently? If I don't pay, everybody's looking at me. So I feel the pressure of other human beings looking at me like I am a bastard, like I'm violating some social rules. And then cheating is really, really for losers, because or you are this kind of rebel that doesn't really care, so like, yeah, ticket is for losers, I'm not that punk anymore, but now you are a loser. You have 40 people looking at you, and no, that's behaving unacceptable. So peer pressure is a good thing. It might be influencing the behavior a lot. So the obvious behavior there is paying the ticket. And with the other bus shape, it was a lot more open. There was the need of stronger social forces or responsibilities to behave like a good person. It was actually family education the best predictor of you're paying the ticket or not. What I'm trying to say, because now I need to bring back into software architecture and away from bus tickets, is that some design choices are defining interaction, and these interactions are defining what is the winning behavior. And if the winning behavior is a good one, then you can have imitation to make it a mass effect. So and then the thing is, well, we can actually do something about design because, well, we are designers in something. So let me get close to software architecture to our world. Maybe you have been there, like the moment of trying to introduce good practices in the team. Like, I want to convince my team members to do domain-driven design. Who's been trying to do this in this? Yeah, and kind of feels weird. In short term, for me, just like I like to say, convincing is waste. You just waste a lot of time. Then the person always has the possibility of asking one more proof, one more question. Yes, but what about this? And all this stuff. So I don't want to convince anybody as a waste of time. What about test-driven development? Test-driven development is one of the more inefficient tools to introduce if you don't have a clear boundary. I mean, if you are the only person writing tests for your code, look like you're doing twice the work, not because you're writing tests and code. That's bullshit. Yes, Barik. And but because everybody else is breaking your test. So you spend a lot of time correcting the damages that everybody else is making. And they don't run your test, so they don't even see. So it's not writing the test, it's the extra cleanup that they do every day. So the thing is this a winning behavior? You're the person continuously complaining about other people breaking your test. Are you a role model? In this scenario, I would say no. Or I remember it was the same pattern when laws about smokers and forbidding smoking in public places. There was this moment where the person complaining about smoke was not a role model. The smoker was a little bit more relaxed. Well, come on, it's just a cigarette. But the friction was kind of weird. So this was one of the little pain, and I think it's still going there. In some conferences, I still hear this, like, I'm trying to do DDD, but it's very hard to convince the rest of my team. Of course, because you don't look like a good role model, unless you try to find a place which is working, which is making you feel safe, and which is making you go home at 5 o'clock while the other guys are still struggling with their coordinated deployment. This might be a winning behavior, but that one is not. So after seeing this, after seeing good people struggle with good ideas applied in the wrong places, I'm trying to be a little bit more optimistic, or thinking about the future. So I would like to discuss a couple of thinking tools that I found out I can apply, and that kind of save the situation in some places. So tool number one is what I call the pink check. And when I say pink, I don't mean the color, even if yes. I mean this Pink, Daniel Pink, the author of Drive, a book about motivation. And well, the book is great, but if you want to have a smash, I would say take a look at this video. Maybe some of you already done it. It's just 10 minutes, kind of groundbreaking. And basically, what Daniel is saying in the book is just like the key drivers of motivation in the workplace can be summarized with autonomy. I can do what I need to do, what I like to do, without so much help from somebody else. Mastery, I need to feel like I'm doing a good job. And purpose. If you think about cooking a good dish at home alone, that's exactly where you can be. Like, I don't need any external help. I have all the ingredients I need, and tastes good. That's exactly where I want to be, and feels great. Okay, so I'm using this, and I try to see if I can check these three main ingredients in real-world scenario. So let's have one real-world scenario. We have, I call them the builders team, and that's actually a good success story. They built a great product, kind of one of the first-generation startups in Italy. They built it, growing on the market, good business success. They took over a new blue ocean market in Italy, and everything was doing great. There was one of the best, talking about the people involved, one of the best team in Italy. Yeah, I would say top 5 in these years. Awesome. So let's look at the pink check. And in this case, autonomy. Well, they built everything from the very beginning. They didn't need anybody. Cool. And mastery, yes, XP practices, TDD, good architecture, making mistakes, covering them up. There was something in the cycle of, I mean, it's not perfect. They were discovering a lot of stuff, and everybody was making wrong decision, and also a lot of good ones. But wrong decision, when they backfired, well, you correct it. It's just like if something wrong happens in this piece of code, it's probably because of us, so we correct it immediately. And also, it was a circle of, I like this. This is our baby. I would like this piece of software to be really good. And what about the purpose? Well, the purpose was kind of not even the problem. It was really clear they were building something new. They got all the good feedback loops, and yes, they wanted more. Well, it's working. It's just like making good feedback, and the business is telling us that this is working. We see the logs. We see the people actually doing transaction. We see the people happy about it. Okay, let's go. Cool stuff. Now, let's look at something different, which is basically the same team a few years later. And a couple of things changed, like the ownership of the company changed. There was a new business decision. They said, like, oh, wow, now you, fantastic team, should make a new product. But in order to save some time, in order to speed up the operation, well, let's not build everything from scratch like you did last time. The problem is already a bit more known. Let's use this external platform as a foundation to build the project. The real project ended up being a customization on top of an existing platform. And 6 months later, basically, I was invited to do kind of a retrospective showdown facilitation type of thing. From the architectural perspective, that was clearly an implementation of the conformance pattern. From the discussion perspective, basically developers were completely pissed off because they could not make the new project as good in quality as the previous one because of the external platform. And that was kind of insulting for them because they knew how to build a good project and they were actively prevented from doing one, to save money. So the pink check, let me run it, autonomy, not anymore. The platform is constraining their option. They didn't even own the source code, so they could see it. They saw that there was something wrong over there, but I don't have the legal rights to change it, so I can only do horrible patches. Talking about mastery, this was this was even worse for this reason, and also some consultant was helping them, and they were suggesting to do really horrible things, like you make a copy of that, put it on the file system, get it there, make a batch running overnight, and they were no. Oh yes, we've done it in so many places, and it was making them feel dirty. Yes, that was the thing, and. The purpose was actually gone. Like the joy of building stuff was gone, and they said like, well, still is a good company with good salary, so they stayed a little. But actually, 6 months later, not a single person of that team was in the company, and it was embarrassing because there was no malice on any side. It was just like the joy was gone. Building stuff is great. Customizing somebody else's software to make something plausible was not exactly the same fun. And we are not exactly doing it for the money. I would say the joy of building stuff is way more interesting as a motivation. The thing that was interesting for me was the dynamics. I also connected it to everything that happened to me in my career. That was the difference of team's attitude once we had good isolated bounded context. So the good virtuous cycle is I'm not depending on anything, which means I'm taking ownership of a lot of stuff. I was never a DevOps, if you want to connect with the initial topic, but we took ownership of our deployment cycle, and it basically meant if anything is going wrong, it's because of us. Since we think that we are good guys, we make sure that nothing goes wrong. And with the clear responsibility, every arrow is pointing to us, but we are good enough to make sure that problems are not happening. This completely breaks down if you don't have this clear responsibility. We have a problem in production. Oh yes, but this is because of the platform. The platform sucks. Well, it never goes well. Yeah, what can we do about it? It's about business, it's politics, and or culture, or whatever. It's not us, and it's going to be a shitty day tomorrow, like it is shitty today. And these were the same people. So it's nothing about the professional attitude. It was something that was in the environment. It was something in the ability or inability to perform. And I realized that the most important thing that could happen was the ability to see purpose, to see something that is working and that we can deliver and take also as a mission and as a responsibility, and make sure that, yes, this cycle is working and it's because of us, and we're doing good stuff and making somebody happy. So I'm going to show something. I needed to put a slide about event storming, because it's actually helping us in some cases to see things which are relevant. This is a picture from a real scenario. Actually, that's a conference organization scenario. So you can see a lot of mess that's here. I'm not explaining this. I'm just saying a couple of things. One, that you can use this one to see the bounded context, the emergent boundaries of responsibility by looking at the people, by looking at the boundaries, by listening to the purposes, listening to the need, and so that we could isolate the places where we have problems that matter and the people that care about the problem. But the other thing that I look at is not, I mean, this is the main reason why technical teams are looking at big picture event storming. But the real reason for me is actually this one. I need to understand what is the good thing that we can do for our users. And if I can understand it, if the team can understand it, then a lot of things become obvious because now you have a team that would like to do the right thing. And this, I would say, is the most important thing for me. So as a summary, when you can give a clear purpose to a team, then you have a fantastic weapon. I just don't know how to pronounce formidable. I'm not sure. So fantastic is better. But without this purpose, then you look at proxies, you look at something else. Okay, I promised 2 tools. Let's look at tool number 2. Tool number 2 is feedback check. And feedback is at the core of Agile, is the core of a lot of things we do, but we can look at it a bit deeper to what goes on with feedback. So talking about feedback loops in your team, I usually look at which are the feedback channels. Can I actually have a conversation with our users? It's surprising how many teams are still forbidden to have a real contact with real users. No, we cannot talk with them. They should not. I mean, it feels like you're a Santa Claus little helper living in North Pole, and people should not be aware of your existence. What is the problem in having a conversation? But the thing is, how can we know we're doing a good job? This is probably the most important feedback loop, and this is so messed up in any organization. Who are we making happy? If you understand who are you making happy, maybe you're trying to make them even happier. And the moment during event storming, somebody reminded people working in the company that they were not there to collect payment with credit cards, but they were there to improve was actually health and mental sanity of their patient, making people feel better, making people feel happier. The whole company turned into, we want to do this, we want to do it right. But before this, they were trying to optimize things that were, in their scope, in their proximity, let's say that. The other thing which is interesting, I would like to get a little bit deeper in that, it's just like, how does good and bad feedback arrive? Because, even if we have feedback channels, good and bad feedback, they actually have different speeds. So let's look at it. Let's look at the typical DevOps team done right. It looks like, by definition, they get feedback from the users and the metrics right after we release. So frequently, and from actually customer engagement. Sounds kind of good. Mistakes are removed quickly. I mean, again, no perfection, but there's something really interesting in this quick feedback, which is, even if it's bad news, like you injected a bug in production, if you just coded this bug and something is not working, you know exactly where the error is. It just can't go, wow, it's this line of code. Yeah, now I realize, bad idea, roll back. And, but if this happens 6 months later, there is no way to think like, what the hell was I thinking that day? I mean, that memory is vanished. So the cost of solving bugs is actually a lot lower. And this is also a good feedback. Like, you have bad idea, corrected immediately. Oh, okay, well, just like, sorry for asking, I'm not doing this ever again. And not to mention the fact that this quick learning cycle might make you get into new ideas. A little warning about business-specific delays is just like, if the feedback is coming from the market, from the user base, different markets have different speed. So some startups, they are going for hockey stick growth, and some people might be disappointed if they don't get to this growth really quickly. But in some markets, there are some delays. If you're having new ideas for new whiskeys, you have to wait a while anyway. So the market is not going to get you to the hockey stick with it's a long-term planning, and it takes a while. Wine is a little bit shorter, but still, it takes years anyway. So it's not only the message, it's also the delay, and good and bad is coming at different speed. Why is this relevant? Because one thing I realized has to do with again, cultural change and self-organization. So again, this is a heuristic. It's not really a law, but sticks in memory. And it says like people won't improve a system if they won't stay around long enough to see the benefits. And have you ever repainted the hotel room? I was in a hotel room that was dark brown. It was horrible. I would never ever live there for more than 3 days, but I was staying there only for 3 days, and so that was okay for me. But if I had to rent a place, well, for a month, well, maybe not. A month is enough to get into a color-based depression, and so no. 1 year buying this house, clearly I'm going to repaint it. Or I hated my university, and I tried to change something as a little stupid student with some ideas. Then I realized, okay, no, nothing is going to change while I'm here. The only thing you can do is try to pass. Forget about changing. You're not changing the system. Optimize your throughput. Say goodbye. Eventually plant a bomb later. But that's not my suggestion. But the thing is, that's kind of an equation. So I'm gonna make it more visible. Like the time to enjoy the benefit of given action, my life expectancy in the system. The moment I'm deciding I am leaving, I will stop improve the system. That is the equation. What is your life expectancy in the system? Are you joining the company for life, or for a 3-month project, for a 2 days engagement? Are you a high turnover consulting company? That is making a lot of difference. Or, and it's not even you. Like maybe you are trying to improve the system in the code base, trying to build a system which is maintainable, but you're doing it in a startup and your boss is planning an exit in 3 months. So what your boss is trying to do is just like increase the apparent value of the company, stacking up features, and well, what about technical debt? Somebody else is gonna pay it, not them. So the whole story about technical debts and is about, well, we always feel like we are supposed to be the one repaying that. No, there are so many other cheating strategies. So, but this is something that I always take in mind, because if people have a short-term horizon, and those guys might even be the investors, long-term actions will really have a hard time. So the nirvana of good code maybe can only happen if everybody has a longer-term strategy. Or maybe the problem is you don't see the benefits quickly enough, because some people are saying like, well, it takes a lot of time to see the benefits of good code. No, it might actually be just 3 days or half an hour for some people, and then I already see it. But this is the kind of simple comparison which is happening in your brain. Let's connect this with the original statement. That's exactly the same slide from the beginning. The gap between high and low performers continues to grow, and that gap was really wide. Remember, for some operation was 400 times faster. How do I see that I can make a change? And if you put this together with the previous statement, well, that's a disturbing reality. If the loop is taking too long, system would not improve at all. People would quit before trying again to make a change. I try, I fail, I realize I'm gonna make 1 more, 2, 4 steps, and maybe I'm gonna see the result of my change in 5 years. You know what? LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. I'm not even trying, but the organization is gonna stay the same. Okay, now, I ended up in the depression mood again, and I'm going to give you some homework for that. So try to run the feedback chat on the following topics. Refactoring. Are you getting any good feedback? And when are you getting this feedback? What are you waiting for? Test-driven development. Architecture migration. Getting a training. It was really disturbing for some people asking for a training, and then continuously said like, oh, you know what, you have this bug to fix on that day, so you can't. And okay, next year I will try again to use some of my training budget. And try to look at the different roles in the organization. One of the disturbing conversations I had, because you can have very different perspectives on this. This was a CTO of a company. He was saying like, yeah, he was trying to paint himself as a good guy, and he was a good guy. Because, yeah, whenever my team asked anything, I tried to fulfill the request. Except that the story from the team was different. saying like it's so exhausting to achieve anything that we only ask the few things which are absolutely necessary and unavoidable. I don't even try if I don't already know that I'm getting a yes. But they have seen a very different part of reality. Okay. I'm going to look at this feedback loop and see a couple of other scenarios. So this is a sadness machine scenario, which is something that I encountered in a large organization, actually partially in Germany. Anyway, the idea was working in this way. They had the key product team working on new features, and their product release cycle was something like 9 months. National teams were working on the local version, taking the final deliverable from the initial team. I mean, the final, once again. I mean, this shape is, if there's anything like really disturbing in the last years, the shape of terror for me is this 3 rectangles in a cascade version. Anyway, national team working on the local version, and this whole operation was taking like 6 months. After this, the software was kind of ready for the customization team that were working on the local installation. And even the installation was taking, 6 months. Kind of complicated. So talking about lead time, it's a lot, but lead is only telling a part of the job. So after seeing this, I was actually drawing this diagram and the mechanics, and I was saying like, is this the way you're working? Yes, that's exactly how we should work. And just coming out straight from my belly was, I would never work in a place like that. No, that's exactly how it should work. Yes, but the point is, I would never work in a place like that, and I guess I'm not the only one. And to be honest, the morning after, the best developer in the room just like quit the company because I would never work in a place like this. But now it was like something coming out from my belly. Now I have a little bit more data to support this. And let's look at the pink check in this scenario, which is, what about the autonomy in this place? No. Nobody, not a single team, could deliver value independently. What about mastery? No. Like, is it valuable? What is the idea of good code? And it's going to be a blame game anyway. No, it was not me. It was the customization team. No, it was a national team. It was not me. Easy. What is the purpose? And actively prevented from having one. So nobody could see the actual user. So the positive feedback with this scenario was like 15 months on average between releasing a feature in production. Yeah, I wrote some code, it was meaningful. Maybe in 15 months, somebody is going to tell me thank you. That's exactly what I wanted. And totally no direct contact with the end user, only working on specification and releasing to a middleman. And so even if this guy said like, yeah, fantastic job, Alberto, then you know that the same guy is coming back to you in a few weeks saying like, it was buggy. So I don't really trust this person. I mean, he's not the end user. Somebody told me that your code was buggy. Yeah, no. What about negative feedback? Oh, the negative feedback is fun because bad feedback can happen at any time after release, but even before. Like everybody could be disappointed about something and start blaming about something. And the thing is, we have no little control over the reason because we are also always disconnected from where is the real information. So there's something weird and even horrible about negative feedback and delay. That is the fact that speed matters. If you tell me that I'm doing something wrong right now, I will correct it immediately. If you tell me that you've done something wrong and I cannot connect with what, that is only creating guilty feeling. It's just like even with dogs, if they're doing something they shouldn't do, if you can block them immediately, that might help. But if you say something like bad dog, they have no idea. They have no memory about the action. They're going to feel guilty and feel like, I am a bad dog. I'm really sorry. I'm a bad dog. And you're creating something horrible. Maybe they're going to have a revenge on you at a given moment. I don't know. Anyway, now I'm trying to plot positive and negative feedback. And he said, like, yes, in 15 months, maybe there's a little thank you, the little probability of a thank you. When it comes to the definition for this, I call it a reward deprivation system. It was designed not to have a single positive feedback loop. Not intentionally, but that was the result. in terms of the bad feedback, yes, it could happen at any time, any moment, bad, and maybe not even your fault, but yeah, Kafka-style punishment system. So in terms of, response from the environment, that's how it worked. And the thing was, that was the architecture. Second scenario, that's coming from a bank in Italy. Microservices architecture, not exactly predictor for success. My friends were asked to develop a new service depending on 12 external services, synchronously, no negotiation. Well, that's the way we do stuff. External services were completely unreliable. They said, like, we never saw all of them up at the same time. Still, they had to provide an SLA. What the hell am I doing? So ping check, quickly. Autonomy, no, I am at the mercy of a dozen enemies. Mastery, no, it doesn't matter. It's just like, even if I do good stuff, I'm depending on horrible stuff. What is the purpose? Survival, escaping, going away. And I have a diagram for this. It's just like, you're supposed to be conformist on 12 unreliable services. And yes, Eric Evans was asking for new names for patterns in the context map, and this is my outcome. And just like, that's designed for you are going to be the scapegoat for 12 different teams. Oh, that's your role in the system. Fantastic. So positive feedback, really low probability of working things, no direct contact with the end user, just in case we are toxic, working on specification, and release it to a middleman. Oh, we have all the dysfunction. In terms of negative feedback, can happen anytime for a dozen of reasons, not our fault, after release, no little control over the reason, always disconnected, once again. What is the outcome? The outcome of this is actually simple, fear. Would you really work in a place like that? You're just buying a ticket for random phone calls at any moment of the night. And it's not your fault, but yeah, so that's going to be the recruiting interview for this scenario. Well, this job will allow you to experience a continuous state of fear, anger, and guilt. Not to mention frustration. Well, and despair too. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this, but at least this is a honest conversation. So another little heuristic. I was in Adam Thornhill talk before, and looks like what I'm saying is just like an oversimplification, but I think I make oversimplification that people remember, and so this is mine. The thing is, good developers are totally okay in pay for their own mistakes. That's what we do. I made a bug, I correct it. The problem is this one. We hate paying for somebody else's one. It's so different. I did a mistake, I will cover it. I'm sorry, this will never happen again, even if it's not exactly my fault, but I feel the pride of it. But if somebody else's code, oh, come on, it's a completely different state of mind. It's not the same job, and once again, crappy code, oh, come on. It's a different type of attitude, even a different voice. So I think the whole idea of bounded context was so great and even underestimated, because when we look at independent models, we are not looking only at models and language consistency, we look to something more. We are looking to this, bounded context for me is a unit of safety. I can do things and my mistakes are not going to have a ripple effect in the whole organization. It's a unit of responsibility and accountability with the organization, but it's also a unit of pride. I'm doing good stuff, and if this thing is bad, it's because of me, but if this thing is good, it's because of me too, and so I can improve on this one. So when we get to the idea of loosely coupled and autonomy, we are in fact designing systems and we might change things a lot. So when we get back to the original idea of microservices on a shared customer table, we are already designing a system that we need a lot of coordination. How many meetings do we need to have for a change on the customer table? Is that what we are paid for? I mean, we like coding, we don't like meetings. If we design a system that is architecturally meeting intensive, we are not creating a good workplace. How is this affecting purpose? I mean, continuously negotiating for feature, No, please. How many external systems are we depending upon? How many enemies can have a voice in our future? How many trade-offs are we making? Like, we can make software like this, but instead we decided to do like this, plus there is little extra concession and this stuff, and then at the end, well, this is the crap we can serve you, but we are good chef, only you never tasted our real recipe. Kind of disturbing. So I'm getting to the closing. The summary should be quick. First, buy a copy of this book, or buy two. One for you, one for your boss, anonymous package under the Christmas tree. The second thing, everything is connected. You cannot really separate architecture from process, from organization, and from culture. You cannot change the culture directly, but you can do something in the architectural space that could make the culture a little different. If we are not fighting in meetings, maybe the culture might be a little bit less of negotiation and a little bit more purpose-oriented. There's something that we can touch easily, and there's something that is really, really far away, which is the way your companies are doing accounting is probably wrong, but they won't start this conversation. But stuff for later talks. Emotions matters. The same team, expert, skills, same room, completely different productivity. The reason in the emotion space, oh, we should not care about emotion, we're software architect. Exactly because we are software architects, we should care about the emotions. If your architecture is making people angry, okay, you have a serious problem. Your architectural choices will shape interaction and culture. And I think this is a call to responsibility, because I don't want to be the person designing a system which will be forcing negotiation and power play as the only way to drive solution. And this is in our space. It's not anybody's responsibility. Remember the boss. Talking about what we like, bounded context and domain-driven design and architecture, talking about bounded context, we are exactly here. So the definition is they are unit of language consistency, but I more and more think like they map pretty well with unit of purpose, a group of people with a well-defined purpose. We might call it a business capability, but is a little bit more money-oriented. I would say purpose is a way better motivator, and there are better purposes than just money. It's also a unit of responsibility and a unit of pride. If you conflate the three things together, you will have a great team. Final thing is, no, not final, I have one more. Safety matters. You cannot really perform if you are not safe. If you are dependent on 12 independent, randomly generating sources of danger, no, you're thinking about survival, not about good design. So you need to provide this as quickly as possible. And the final thing is look at the horizon alignment. Is your horizon aligned with one of the people around you? If you have a long-term goal and long-term engagement, it works a lot better than just somebody thinking short-term. But the most important of all is find the purpose. Make sure you're doing the right thing for the right people, and then a lot of good things will happen, because that's obvious. Why were you wasting our time doing this stuff? I guess that's the most important thing here. So I will stop here. And I don't know if we can have question times, but I will be around in the conference for the whole day. I have a plane only later. So yeah, thank you for being here.